The first people to settle in Aotearoa, New Zealand were Polynesian voyagers from Re-enactment, Hawaii, in the Southern Cook and Society Islands. They sailed across the Pacific in double-hulled canoes around 750 AD. Then, 600 years later, the Great Fleet departed from the Tahitian region, navigating by ocean currents, wind and stars. Abel Tasman, a Dutch explorer, was the first European to discover Aotearoa in 1642. Over a century later, Captain James Cook set sail from Plymouth, England, in the Endeavour. As well as studying the transit of Venus, his instructions were to find the great southern continent, to document its geology, fauna and flora, and to cultivate friendship with its inhabitants. He arrived in Tahiti in April 1769, and there Cook met Tupaia, a highly intelligent philosopher, astronomer, navigator, artist and priest from Waiata. Cook spent about 4 months in Tahiti and witnessed the transit of Venus there on the 3rd of June, 1769. Afterwards, Cook sailed south with Tupaia on board, and on the 6th of October, the surgeon's boy, Nicholas Young, sighted land, now known as Young Nick's Head, on the east coast of New Zealand, and the Endeavour anchored in Poverty Bay. When on the 8th of October 1769, Cook went and others, they were approached by 4 Maori warriors with Cook's men mistook the Rutu ritual approach as a threat and shot and killed one of them, Te Maro, the future chief of the Ngāti Oni. The next day, Cook took a large party of red-coated Marines and went ashore again. Time was Tupaia. Maori warriors on both sides of the river, ready for war. Tupaia called out to the warriors in Tahitian, and they were able to understand him. Cook kept Tupaia by his side for the rest of his on New Zealand to help with his interactions with Maori. Tupaia was regarded by Maori as the chief from their homeland who had brought Cook to Aotearoa. Cook planned to take Tupaia back to England with him, but sadly Tupaia died of malaria on the journey. He never got to visit England or meet King George III. On Cook's second journey to Aotearoa on the Resolution in 1773, everywhere he went the Māori always asked, "Where is Tupaia?" During this voyage he visited Fiordland and spent 6 weeks in Busby town. Over the next 50 years, British settlers started to arrive in New Zealand and established Russell as the capital. The Ngāpuhi tribe from North Auckland traded with European settlers for muskets and were the first tribe to obtain this devastating weapon. Between 1818 and 1833, intertribal wars in the north, known as the Musket Wars, resulted in wholesale massacre. War, along with European diseases, devastated the Maori population. With growing numbers of British migrants coming to New Zealand in the late 1830s, as well as whalers and sawmillers, came an increase in lawlessness and disorder. The British were concerned about this, and also that France or other countries might try and claim New Zealand. So Lieutenant Governor William Hobson was sent and given the task of securing British sovereignty over New Zealand with the assistance of James Busby. The treaty was prepared over a few days. Missionary Henry William and his son translated the English draft into Māori. However, the English and Māori versions were not identical. The British believed that the treaty gave them sovereignty over the people and possession of the land, while the Māori had no concept of sovereignty and no exact translation of the term. They believed, from the Māori version, that they would gain protection and governance from Britain but retain full authority over their land, forests, fisheries and taonga. After a day of debate, the Treaty of Waitangi was signed on the 6th of February 1840. Honeheki signed first, followed by 39 other chiefs. Copies of the treaty were sent around New Zealand and another 500 chiefs signed. The colonial office in England declared that the treaty also applied to those tribes whose chiefs had not signed, namely Tuhoi and Ngāpui. And on the 21st of May 1840, the British proclaimed sovereignty over New Zealand. By 1865, the New Zealand government had seized 16,000 square kilometres of Māori land. This was the basis of the formation of the Waitangi Tribunal. The Waitangi Tribunal Act was passed in 1975 to address the Māori grievances and land confiscation. By 2015, there were 2,500 registered claims before the tribunal, with less than half of these having been dealt with. The treaty is not a constitutional document, but its intention and spirit are extremely important. Its principles, participation, partnership and protection are still referred to in legal issues and documents today.
E hoa atua o ngā iwi matura a ta whakarongona me aroha noa ki ahua ko te pai ki a tautoa ta whai mana ki ti amai Aotearoa, God of nations at thy feet. In the bonds of love we meet. Hear our voices, we entreat. God, defend our free land. God, Pacific's triple star, from the shafts of strife and war, make our presence heard afar. God, defend New Zealand.
whanore he kororia, he maunga rongo ki te whenua, he whakaaro pai ki ngā tangata katoa. He mihi tēnei ki te atua, hei koro waitia i a tātou i te manaakitanga i tēnei rā. Kia tika te kōrero mai te puna o te aroha, kia pua wai te whānau. Nā reira, ko tēnei he mihi humarie, kia koutou rā ngā iwi maha e noho ana i te taumaru o ngā parirau, o ngā tahu Ngāti Moi Waitaha hoki. Ko koutou rā te puna o te aroha, ko koutou rā te puna o te whānau. Nā reira, tēnā tātou katoa. Ka tūmotu hake a hau hei mua i a koutou katoa, ki te tuku kōrero e pāna ki oku whakaaro o tēnei ao e ai ki a hau. Huri noa, i rere kaumaitawa mai ngā kāui maunga ki Tangaroa, ko Aotearoa, ko te awa ko au. Ko Aotea te Waka, ko Ruapehu te maunga, ko Wanganui te awa, ko te ati haunui a pāpārangi te iwi, ko ngā pairangi tapu, ko kaiwai ki te marae. Ko hurihia ki te awatia tawaro tōku ingoa. My name is Hurihia, and I'm named after and carry my grandmother's name. Yep, you guessed it, Hurihia. My story is a sad story, but a happy story. It's a family story, but most importantly, it's my story. I ngā rā mua e mā wiwi ana tōku tipuna krawa, he tata rawa hoki ia ki te mate. Ko tōna ake hiahia ki te pā mai te māhanatanga o tamanui te rā, kia whakamāhorahora ai ki aia. Ka karanga ake te krawa nei, ka hurihia mai, ka hurihia atu, ko tōna hiahia ki te takoto i te whitinga o te rā. I muri o te matenga o tōku tipuna krawa, ka whakaingoatia tōku tipuna kuia i tōna pipi ko hurihia. Kia kore mātou e warewaretia tā mātou nei tipuna krawa, tā mātou nei whakapapa. Many years ago, my great-great-grandfather was very ill and was very close to dying, and all he ever wanted was to feel the warmth of the sun on his face and to be at peace. He would call out, "Hurihia mai, hurihia atu." He was asking to be turned to the warmth of the sun. After my great-grandfather died, my great-great-grandmother then named her pipi Hurihia, so we would never forget our whakapapa, our whānau. I te wae koraina ana tōku tipuna kuia a Nani Hurihia, kare e tae ngā kai ko Pakeha ki te whakahuatika i tōna ingoa. Kātahi, ka whakahuria ke te ingoa Maori, ko Hurihia, ki tētahi ingoa Pakeha, ko Julia. Ko te ingoa tūturu o tōku kuia ko Hurihia, hoi anō mai te wā te maiti ana tae atu ki tōna mate, ko tōna ingoa ko Julia. When my Nani Hurihia went to school, the Pakeha teachers couldn't pronounce my Nani Hurihia's name and changed her name to Julia. Just like that, she wasn't Hurihia anymore, and it saddens me to think about how my Nani Hurihia must have felt to pretend to be someone else. My Nani's name was Hurihia, but from the time she went to school right up to her death, she was called Julia. Kāre au tūtaki I tōku tipuna kuia a Nani Hurihia, I mate ia hei mua I tōku whānau mai. Ahakoa kāre au te tino mōhio ko wai tōku kuia a tinana, nōna I whakaako ia hau te tino hirahiratanga o te whakapapa, kia hono I ngā ingoa Maori. I never got to meet my Nani Hurihia, as she passed away before I was born, and all I have are photographs and stories told to me by my whānau. And although I didn't know my Nani Hurihia personally, it was her that taught me the significance of whakapapa and te reo Māori. Now, let me tell you about the research to my speech. I was actually in two minds about sharing this with you all. You'll soon understand why. Anyway, I sat down with my papa and explained the topic of my speech. Don't be afraid to do something different. I asked my papa if he could try doing something different every day for a week. He just said, "Oh yeah, nah, all good, sweet as." Now that was the plan, but what a disaster. I must say that I take my love of books and all things off from my papa. He keeps on shoving all these old tatty books at me with authors that have the coolest names like Oscar Wilde, George Orwell, Christopher Hitchens, and of course Witi Himaira. Anyway, it's Monday morning and my papa is making his morning cup of tea. Me. Hey papa, so what are you going to do different today? My papa. I've already done it. Me. Hey, what do you mean you've already done it? The day hasn't even started. What have you done that's so different? My papa. Well, my baby, I've decided to wear my undies back to front for the whole week. Me. Oh, Papa, you're supposed to be helping me research my speech. Then my papa went on to explain that you can't force people to be different. They are who they are. But if you have a really good idea and people agree with you, well, that's when change will happen. Then he went on to say, hey, bub, I really am wearing my undies back to front. Want to check it out? Well, at least he's not afraid to do something different, even if it is slightly uncomfortable. Let's be different. Let's think about what Aotearoa looks like and how different it could look to what it is now. Let's involve our rangatahi in finding the answers. Let's learn alongside each other about who we are and why we belong. When my nanny Hurihia went to school, the Pakeha teachers couldn't pronounce her name and she couldn't correct them and tell them her name wasn't Julia. But I can. Te tiriti o Waitangi for me is simple. It's about actions, not words. It's about acknowledging who we all are. And even if you can't say my name, don't be afraid to ask me. I'm not afraid to teach you. I'm proud to be here today in acknowledgement of Te Tiriti o Waitangi Rua Mano Te Kaumā Waru. A kaupapa where we can bring whānau together, connect with one another, creating opportunities and experiencing what it really means to belong to something greater than ourselves. I say to you all, maranga mai Aotearoa, don't be afraid to do something different. Nā reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Ko tēnei, ko koe te piringa, anei ahau e tangi ana, kei hera koe tōku whia, anei ahau tō moko pūla. Maku pupuri to aroha mo ake to nura. You bring the sun out to warm my life up, to make my love grow every day. You bring the stars out to light the night up, to make the darkness go away. I reach to you, you reach to me. No matter where I go, I know you'll always be. Never too far, far from my heart. I'll always know you're near, I'll always know you're here. You bring the stars out to light my life up, to make my love grow every day. You bring the stars out to light the night up, to make the darkness go away. Thank you very much.
Kia ora, Marina. Here, you are kama tawahi. Awesome, fantastic. Thank you. I would like to first acknowledge Raka Aparima Runanga of Ngaitahu Iwi, who have given us their support and blessing to hold this Waitangi Day festival here in Te Anau. Waitangi Day, our national day, is a time to reflect on our history, celebrate our culture and heritage. we have delved back into our history, and you have met Tupaia, an extraordinary Tahitian who enabled Cook, Banks and his men to engage with Maori. New Zealand has never acknowledged Tupaia until the recent publication of Anne Simmons' book and subsequent Maori television documentary Tupaia's Endeavour. It's time he was recognised. Following the treaty signing in 1840, disputes erupted over land because of the misinterpretation on the Maori and the British version of the treaty. These disputes led to the New Zealand land wars between Maori and British Crown, which went on for 30 years. And northern battles erupted. The British, despite vastly outnumbering Maori, were unable to defeat Maori because of the genius of Chief Te Ruki Kawiti, highlighted in the Battle of Ruapekapeka. Kawiti built trenches, bunkers, underground passages, and there were limited Maori fatalities, but the British seized land. Northern Maori were dispossessed of land and resources. Ngāpuhi have never ceded sovereignty to the Crown. They are still waiting to this day to settle grievances and treaty claims. The Taranaki Wars in 1960 and 61 were fought at Waiata, and later at Kapa Haka in 1879, passive resistance by Maori to British settling on confiscated Maori land led to arrests without trial, imprisonment and abuse. Maori were driven out of Kapa Haka and their village demolished. Land wars in Waikato from 1863 culminated in the historic Battle of Gate Pa. More land was seized by the Crown. So as Europeans settled in New Zealand in the late 19th century, native forest was cut down for timber and for farming. Agriculture became the mainstay of the economy, and particularly after William Davidson fitted out an old sailing ship, the Dunedin, with a coal-powered freezing plant in 1982, and that carried the New Zealand's first shipment of frozen meat to Britain, 5,000 carcasses. And this opened the door for export of frozen meat and dairy products, which has been the cornerstone of our economy in the 20th century. In the First World War, New Zealand's population was 1.1 million. 100,000 New Zealanders, that's 10% of the population, went to war. The war claimed 18,000 lives. We lost 1 in every 5 who went, equivalent to 50 years of our road toll. In the Second World War, 1939 to 1945, New Zealand population was 1.6 million. About 140,000 New Zealanders went to the war, roughly 10% of the population. 12,000 died, almost 1 in 10 who went died. The Great Depression, resulting from the New York stock market collapse in 1929, lasted 6 years. The New Zealand economy, dependent on agricultural exports to Britain, collapsed. Unemployment was 30%, 45% in Maori. There were riots. The government relief schemes built railways, roads, planted forestry blocks. Most of the roads and railways that we have in this country now were built during this period. Sadly, many of the railway lines have not been maintained, or they've been pulled up as motor cars and the oil economy took over. Now we need the railways more than ever. So we had a rough time in New Zealand for 100 years following the signing of the treaty. And it wasn't until 1975 that Maori voice was listened to and the Waitangi Tribunal was formed to deal with treaty claims and grievances. And Dame Whenakupa, who led a hikoi from the north to Wellington, in her words, she said, "Let us remember that the treaty was signed so that we could all live as a nation in Aotearoa." There remain fundamental unresolved issues and political conflict. The Foreshore and Seabed Act, passed by Helen Clark's Labour government in 2004, vested ownership of the foreshore and seabed in the Crown, denying Maori customary title rights. Now we have an issue regarding freshwater, lakes and rivers. Not only are they becoming alarmingly polluted, but who has the rights to the water for hydropower, irrigation, to drink, to sell, to swim in? And what rights do the fish, kura, tuna and eel have? The introduction of rats, rabbits, stoats, deer, possums and cats, mostly by European settlers, has decimated many species of native birds and insects, as well as our forests. we are now faced with a huge problem in trying to deal with it. Don Mertens and his team successfully eradicated rats from Ruapeka Island to save the storm petrel, and we saved the black robin from almost extinction on the Chatham Islands. We're gradually increasing numbers of kakapo up to 160 in Tākahi. But now Kia, New Zealand Bird of the Year, is threatened with extinction, and Tamsin Walker will tell us about that this afternoon. The magnificent kauri tree is now under threat from fungal disease transmitted by humans. Tourism is now impacting on our environment. How many tourists can this country and the environment handle? Who pays for infrastructure? Ratepayers or tourists? However, our history is not all that bad. Kate Shepherd and her fellow suffragettes in 1893, thanks to them, New Zealand became the first country in the world to give all adult women the vote. Today we have a 37-year-old female Prime Minister who's only the second woman head of state worldwide to be having a baby while in office. And she is the first female Prime Minister to be welcomed onto the Upper Marae Waitangi and speak at the Upper Marae. And we have a female Governor-General, Dame Patsy Reddy. In science and technology, Sir Ernest Rutherford from Nelson received the Nobel Prize for his work on disintegration of elements in 1908. He was the first person to split the atom. Norman Daish invented the milking machine 100 years ago, and I'm sure he would never envisage the impact that dairy farming would have on the environment, particularly our rivers today. Bill Gallagher invented the electric fence, and William Hamilton the jet boat engine. Peter Beck recently founded New Zealand's rocket lab with groundbreaking technology using carbon fibre and 3D computer rocket assembly, and a few weeks ago successfully launched small commercial satellites into space at drastically lower cost. We are leading the world in this technology, extraordinary for a country of our size. New Zealand's most famous individual, Sir Ed Hillary, a beekeeper and great adventurer and explorer, was the first to conquer Everest in 1953 with Tenzing Norgay. In sport, Anthony Wilding was world #1 tennis player in 1911. He won 11 Grand Slams titles and Wimbledon 8 times. Motor racing legend Bruce McLaren is the only man ever to have designed, built and driven his own Formula One racing car to win Formula One championship. Burt Munro from Invercargill modified and rebuilt his 1920 Indian motorbike. He set an under 1000cc world record at Bonneville in 1967 at the age of 68. The record still stands. His bike was designed for a maximum speed of 89 kilometres per hour. Burt got it to go 320 kilometres per hour. In athletics, Dr. Jack Lovelock broke the world record mile record in 1933. He won New Zealand's first athletic Olympic gold in the 1500 metres at the Berlin Olympics in 1936 in front of Adolf Hitler. Sir Peter Snell is New Zealand's athlete of the 20th century, is the only man since 1920 to have won 800 metres and 1500 metres gold in the one Olympics. John Walker was the first person to run a mile in less than 3 minutes 50 and the first to run 100 sub-400 miles. Valerie Adams has been the dominant sportswoman in shot put in the world since 2006. Lydia Ko was the youngest person to be #1 golfer in the world, aged 17 years, and to win a major. She's won 2. New Zealand is the greatest yachting nation in the world and the greatest rugby nation in the world. There's a long list of other sportsmen and women, riders, musicians, singers, like Ngaitahu's Evelyn Jane Skerritt. From Rakiura, Stewart Island, she was our first singer to perform overseas. She spent most of the time in England during the war years. Later Dame Kerry Takanawa. We are artists, filmmakers like Sir Peter Jackson and Taika Waititi have stamped their mark on the world. We have legendary characters like Murray Ball, Sam Hunt, Billy T. James, John Clark, Barry Crump. All these New Zealanders help shape our culture and identity as to who we are. We're proud of them all. Our history is important. Do not forget our history. It may be, whether it be political, social, technological or sporting history, it defines us as a nation, as a people. We have a lot to be proud of as a nation and of individual New Zealanders who've had the vision and achieved great things. We tend to avoid talking about those aspects of our history which are not so great, like the New Zealand land wars, and land confiscations, or water. We must learn from our history and our mistakes. I used to live in Gisborne, and at that time farmers I knew used D8 bulldozers with huge drums on cables, and they would roll these down the hill and smash down all the manaka to clear for grazing. And then Cyclone Bowler arrived, and 1/3 of the hillside's topsoil were washed away into the valleys below, destroying grapes, citrus and other crops. Now, manaka trees and manaka honeybees are the new East Coast gold. We are seeing the same sort of short-sighted approach to dairy farming, destroying our rivers, wetlands and aquifers. 90% of wetlands in New Zealand have been destroyed, mostly drained. The science is there, we must listen to scientists. Our history tells us we keep stuffing things up with short-sighted, profit-driven activities, then we having to fix the consequences, but it's often too late. So when we are faced with challenges of poverty, inequality, treaty settlements, and a housing crisis brought on by the failure of the market economy, the environment, climate change, 100% renewable energy, mental health, methamphetamine abuse, consumerism and tourism, we must weigh up and consider economy versus environment, profit versus poverty, participate or isolate, pure or pollute, dairy versus sheep, technology and tikanga, tourism and taio. But we Kiwis can do it if we all participate and in partnership. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank other members of the Waitangi 2018 Te Anau Committee for their hard work and commitment. Jill Lavery-Mitchell, Joy Crouchley, Dale Wairau, Suri Waireri, and all the other people in Te Anau community who have participated, sponsored and supported this day. Faith and its crew, Nahau Awha, Kapa Haka group, and Ross Buxton and the Te Aotearoa Waka Ama teams. Oh, where's Audrey? Is Audrey here? Go on. Audra, I'd like to thank Audra. Without her help in organising this event, we wouldn't be able to manage this. She's a passionate and energetic wahine, and ngā mihi nui, Audra. I've learned a lot from her, including a few Maori words. Most of them are useful. Thank you for your attention.
Tu te mai nau iwi, tātou tātou e. Tu te mai nau iwi, tātou tātou e. Whai ati mau manatanga, me te aroha ene iwi. Kia pitahi, kia pitahira,